so much new information for Phase 4 Season of Discovery. I've parsed through all of it to give you the best information on runes, tier sets, and the very best and worst classes to pick so you don't accidentally roll a gnome. So to get to the bottom of which classes will be getting the biggest downgrades in Phase 4 and the biggest upgrades, we've got to talk about the biggest new runes and all those big new rune changes that even have some warriors planning to re-roll. Then we'll be talking about those really big new tier sets and how they're drastically going to change the balance of power. Once we've factored in all the biggest changes to runes and tier sets, we can figure out which of the classes will be the weakest and which will be the strongest as well. So with the new rune slot on the cloak, we're looking at 3 potential new runes for every single class. So to not have a 4-hour-long video, I just wanted to talk about the single most impactful rune per class, at least in my opinion. So from worst to best, it kind of feels like Warlocks are getting screwed over here. Their best rune is looking like Decimation. So Soulfire no longer has a CD. A bunch of your spells reduce the cast time of Soulfire as well. So far, not looking great for Warlocks. So coming in at number 8, the most impactful rune to me comes from Paladin, and it is Righteous Vengeance. When one of your major abilities does a crit, your target takes 30% extra damage. So in my testing, that was seemingly like a dot similar to Deep Wounds. And if you're a Red Paladin, that is music to your ears in terms of scaling. So coming in at number 7, talking Shadow Priest, we have Vampiric Touch. So 2% of the damage you deal turns into mana for your party. And yes, everybody's talking pretty negatively on the Shadow Priest Discord about these changes, but I'd be really excited to have Vampiric Touch in my party. So coming in at number 6, we have the Hunters. Their standout new ability is Kill Shot. Deals increased weapon damage, and that resets if the enemy is below 20%. So really the ultimate execute phase ability, but if we get to it later, Hunter's not looking so good. So at number 5, we have Warriors getting Fresh Meat. So that's going to increase your physical damage when you damage a target with Bloodthirst. May seem underwhelming right now, but we know how Warriors scale. Probably going to end up overpowered. At number 4, Ellie Shamans getting that Storm, Earth, and Fire. Reduces the CD of Chain Lightning by 100%, and you get 60% more Flame Shock periodic damage. It seems strong on paper, and in reality, it's even stronger. Ellie Shaman's looking super broken. Rogues at number 3 get Fan of Knives, of course super broken, super overpowered, and they're going to top the meters in AoE now. At number 2, we have Overheat for Fire Mages. Everybody is overlooking this ability. If you fight the Testwork boss, you're going to see a lot of mages very high in the meters because of this ability. It removes the global cooldown from Fire Blast, so you can stack it with other abilities, and it's always going to crit. Completely overpowered. At number 1, Feral Druids are getting improved swipe, so in cat form you're going to be chunking multiple enemies at the same time. Not only have Ferals lost their biggest weakness, but they're going to be a huge threat on the AoE meters all the time now. So we know the standout runes for every single class now. We've got to talk about the standout tier sets as well, because the tier set bonuses are crazy. Let's talk about the 5 strongest tier sets and the 3 weakest. So at number 5, for the strongest tier sets, Warrior are getting a very strong tier set, and the PvP theory crafting behind this one is terrifying me. They get all sorts of increased damage bonuses and rage when they change stances. So will it be too strong in PvE? Yes, probably. At number 4, we have Holy Paladin. Your heals provide huge party healing now. It is very possible with this tier set, Holy Paladins will become the strongest healer in Phase 4. Perhaps more importantly though, Judgment of Wisdom 100% trigger chance, so your raid is going to love you. At number 3, Shadow Priests. They always scale terribly, so it's nice to get an actually very good tier set. With the new tier set, they can arguably solo off-heal dungeons, since a flash heal works in shadow form. And your Mind Blast is also going to be amping up your Mind Flay, making it way less annoying to use too. At number 2, Ellie Shaman. 40-yard totem range, that's great. Instant Lava Burst, instant Chain Lightnings. I don't know who designed this tier set, but they went too far. At number 1, the strongest tier set, we're talking Feral Druid. So your rotation is much improved. Your periodic damage from Rake and Rip can crit now. And Ferocious Bite and Rip are going to refresh the duration of Savage Roar. It's an insanely strong tier set. So getting into some negatives, here are the 3 worst tier sets. So everybody is hyping up the Boomkin tier set for some reason. Reduce cooldown on Starfall by 50%. But let me tell you, Starfall 90-second cooldown to begin with. This isn't going to move the needle in a speed run. Even with the tier set, you're only going to get Starfall once every like 4 packs. Number 2 worst tier set, Hunters. One of the most boring tier set bonuses, and it really won't change much. 3% flat damage if you're tracking the enemy type. Your next shot does 20% increased damage after an aim shot. At number 1, the weakest tier set in my opinion is the Warlock tier set. Life Tap gives you more mana, not very exciting. You get a few underwhelming procs like an increased chance for your Nightfall to trigger. Really not looking good for Warlocks. So we've talked runes, we've talked tier sets. The question is, which class is going to end up benefiting the most from these changes? To keep things moving fast, I'm just going to do the 3 strongest, 3 weakest classes from the PTR so far. Now everything is still being adjusted, things are very much subject to change. Starting off with the great, number 3, Feral Druid. They probably shouldn't have given Feral huge AoE damage, probably shouldn't have given him one of the strongest tier sets. Blizzard for some reason did that though, and now they're looking very overpowered. At number 2, the Ellie Shaman. To give Ellie Shamans one of the strongest new runes was one thing. To give them arguably the best tier set bonus was another entirely. It's probably going to be the phase of Ellie Shaman domination, and thank goodness I am on the Horde so I don't have to deal with them in PvP. At number 1 though, we're going Rogues. You're giving Rogues the strongest AoE ability, you're nerfing all their competition. Rogues are looking completely insane right now. Getting into some bad though. The 3 worst looking classes from the PTR so far. At number 3, I'm trying to be positive on Shadow Priest. I feel really bad when I look in their Discord and I see them all really depressed in there. But while Void Touch is super cool, it really just can't compete with some of the runes near the top of the list. And sure, we can use any priest racial now, so we can all use Devouring Plague and do like 2,000 more damage on every boss. But really, this feels like a bottom tier DPS angle right now, unfortunately. At number 2, we have Hunters. So for now, Blizzard has murdered the melee Hunter. At the same time, range Hunters are very small improvements. Yes, they're still going to be brought to the raid, but their runes and their tier set leave a lot to be desired. The age of the Hunter may well be over in Season of Discovery without some more changes. At number 1, the weakest looking class in the PTR though, it's the Warrior. The Warriors have had devastating nerfs, and I really haven't seen a single Warrior be competitive on the test boss. We know they scale the best with world buffs though, that is your word of caution, so they may end up being much better than they look, but for now, they are a huge disappointment. So we've talked about the most impactful new runes, which ones are going to make a huge difference, and also the biggest disappointments as well. We also covered the game-changing new tier sets that'll have us blasting through Molten Core. And then we ranked some of the projected strongest and weakest classes in the game. I'm curious what you guys think will be the number 1 class in Season of Discovery Phase 4. To me, it's probably going to be either Fire Mage or Ellie Shaman. Definitely subscribe though, because I'm going to have many more in-depth tier lists and analysis coming up very soon on the channel. If you do want to do some last-minute Phase 4 gold making as well, check out my ultimate gold and loot cheats video next to get prepped for Phase 4.